Have you ever heard a story that's just so insane, so unbelievable, that you actually want it to be true? Well, get ready, because we're about to dive into one of the internet's greatest modern legends, the absolutely mind-bending story of PanAm Flight 914.
Just really think about that for a second. Could a plane literally vanish off the face of the Earth in 1955 and then just reappear and land perfectly fine in 1992, like no time had passed at all? It sounds like the plot of a movie, but for years, people have sworn this is a real, unsolved mystery.
So, to really get how weird this all is, we have to go back. Picture it. It's a totally normal summer day in the 1950s. A routine flight, a simple trip. Nobody on board had a clue that their plane was about to fly right off the radar, and maybe even out of time itself.
Okay, so the date is July 2nd, 1955. This plane, a Douglas DC-4, takes off from New York. It's heading to Miami. Should only take a couple hours. For the 57 passengers and 6 crew members, this was supposed to be just another Tuesday.
But then, something happens. That little blip on the radar screen that was Flight 914, it just winked out of existence. Gone. Air traffic control is calling, trying to get a response, nothing but static. Search parties looked everywhere, but they found absolutely zero evidence. No wreckage, no debris. It was as if the plane just vanished into thin air.
And for 37 years, that's where the story ended. It became one of those great, tragic aviation mysteries. Families moved on, the case went cold, and then, on September 9th, 1992, something happened that should have been impossible. Can you imagine being an air traffic controller in Caracas, Venezuela, and suddenly an old-school propeller plane, a model you haven't seen in forever, just appears out of the blue? Then a voice crackles over the radio, calm as can be, identifying itself as PanAm Flight 914, the same flight that disappeared 37 years ago.
On the ground, it was chaos and disbelief. The plane was a fossil, a DC-4, but it looked brand new. And get this, ground crews could see the passengers' faces in the windows, and they looked confused, but they hadn't aged a single day. When the tower told the pilot the actual date, he was completely stunned. He thought it was still 1955.
So, you gotta ask yourself, if you believe the story so far, how in the world do you explain it? An event this crazy needs a seriously out-there explanation. And trust me, people came up with some wild ones.
The number one theory you'll hear is a wormhole. Yep, the idea is that the plane accidentally flew into some kind of tear in the fabric of space-time. So for the people on the plane, only a few minutes went by, but for the rest of us, here on Earth, 37 years just flew by. It's straight up Einstein, but on a flight to Miami?
And of course, where there's a weird mystery in the sky, you're going to hear about aliens. The 1950s were a massive time for UFO sightings, right? So this theory says the plane was just scooped up by a UFO, maybe the passengers were studied for a bit, and then they were dropped back off in our timeline, probably with their memories wiped clean.
And this whole missing time thing isn't new. It's actually a huge part of some of the most famous alleged alien abduction cases ever, like the Betty and Barney Hill story or the Travis Walton case. They all claim to have lost hours, sometimes even days, with no idea what happened. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? Then there's the theory that doesn't look up to the stars, but looks right at our own government. What if the plane flew into some top-secret Cold War experiment? We're talking weird stuff like the Philadelphia experiment, which was rumored to involve teleportation, or MKUltra, which we know is a real CIA project on mind control. Maybe the passengers weren't lost in time. Maybe they were guinea pigs.
So we've got wormholes, we've got aliens, we've got secret government plots. These are all incredible explanations for a truly incredible story. But here's the thing, they all crash and burn when you run into one simple, unavoidable problem.
Yeah, the problem is it's all fake. The whole thing. The entire, fantastic, mind-bending story of PanAm Flight 914 is a complete fabrication. The flight didn't disappear because the flight never even existed.
All right, so if it's all a big fat lie, where did this super detailed story come from? And, maybe more importantly, why have so many of us believed it for so long? Let's pull back the curtain on this hoax.
The birthplace of this entire myth can be traced to one place, a 1985 article in the Weekly World News. Now, if you don't know, this was a supermarket tabloid famous for making up the craziest stories you can imagine. We're talking about Bat Boy, Elvis being alive. They weren't in the business of news, they were in the business of fiction.
And the whole thing just falls apart when you look closer. The first story came out in 1985, But later on, people changed the landing year to 1992, probably to make the story sound even crazier. They used stock photos of two totally different guys and claimed they were the same eyewitness. And that iconic photo of the plane? Yeah, that's just a generic stock image you can find online. It's not evidence of anything.
So, why is this story still floating around today? The internet. The original tabloid story was basically a joke, but years later it got picked up by YouTube and social media. When you take away the silly context of the original paper, it suddenly sounds like a real mystery, and millions of people bought it, hook, line, and sinker.
Okay, so the story is 100% fake. Does that mean it's useless? I don't think so. The story of Flight 914 might be fiction, but its journey from a goofy tabloid article to a global viral sensation actually tells us something really important about ourselves.
What we have here is a classic showdown. The myth versus the truth. And let's be honest, the myth survives because it's just a way better story, right? A time-traveling airplane is so much cooler than the boring reality of some guy at a tabloid just making stuff up. It hooks right into that part of us that wants to believe the world is full of magic and mystery.
Ultimately, the real lesson here is all about media literacy. It's a huge reminder that we live in an age where amazing stories are literally at our fingertips, and that means the responsibility is on us. It's up to us to be a little skeptical, to ask some questions, and to check our sources before we believe something, and definitely before we share it.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? What other viral stories or so-called unsolved mysteries that we all just accept as true are really just the next Flight 914, waiting for someone to pull the thread? It's a fantastic reminder that even though a great story is powerful, digging for the truth is always worth it. Thanks for tuning in to this explainer.